Now, let's talk about Haiyan. 6,000 people, more than 6,000 people died in that. How are the rebuilding efforts going at this point?
Again, I'm a person who's never contented with what's happening, but in the sense that if whatever has been accomplished, I keep pushing my cabinet and the other agencies of government and the private sector to do more. Okay. Having said that, it affected 1.14 million of our families, no? And that represents about 5% of the total population. We have managed to restart livelihood. For instance, we have marginal fishermen and about 30,000 small boats, no, have been given to these marginal fishermen to restart their lives. There have been interventions in terms of crop substitution for those who were primarily dependent on coconuts. The schools have been put up. Most of the infrastructure in terms of roads have already done. School buildings are still, it's a whole list of things that are being done.
That's Benigno Aquino III, the president of the Philippines, talking there about, of course, Typhoon Haiyan, which hit last year. We also talked about global security, ISIS, and China in our conversation. You can hear that at hereandnow.org.
Earlier what we were talking about.
Previously we were talking about this whole thing and the mass graves, because currently the government is actually thinking of creating tourist centers after the whole thing. Even the event, they're thinking of creating it as a tourist capital, a tourist investment, an investment capital for tourism in this area. They're thinking of creating the mass graves as tourist capitals, tourist centers afterwards, and even these Egypts. They're thinking of just putting it there and making it a tourist center to gather in income and revenues coming from tourists even outside the country. And it's very insensitive to do that, especially that the whole thing is exaggerated. Right. Even after weeks after this storm, the government is actually, the Department of Tourism specifically, is actually thinking of creating a whole big ritual thing for the dead, to gather in tourists to look at the ritual. Not actually to care for the dead people, whether you are giving them a justified or rightful death, burial, or what have you. So what were you asking about the 40-meter thing, the land grabbing case, the displacement case? Yeah. This is actually a large case of land grabbing as a mass scale land grabbing, because currently the government is pushing, the national and the local government is actually pushing for this ordinance or for this law. Saying that 40 meters coming from the shore, you can no longer rebuild your houses, you can no longer claim your properties there, because they're saying that it's no longer safe to do that. But if it's really the safety of the people they're concerned, why not talk about disaster risk preparedness? Why not talk about preparedness of the people for any disaster that will came? Because if, for example, you will displace the people from the coastline to some other area, thinking of another storm surge, what if another calamity will happen and will hit that displacement or the relocation area that you will be putting the people into? And it's actually a matter of disaster preparedness and not just relocation and inappropriate resolutions that you're thinking. Right. Something like that. Also the rehabilitation aspect, because currently the government is already pushing for a rehabilitation council that's actually having representations coming from the basic people and without actually having the people consulted as to how they want the rehabilitation for them. Because we're thinking of a people-centered rehabilitation program and not just a rehabilitation program wherein all the people who are there, actually the businessmen and the large capitalists and the large landlords, talking about their own selves and how can they gather more income from what happened, because it's not actually going to resolve anything, but will rather cause more problems for the people, especially the marginalized people.
So, if this does come into effect, where are they thinking of putting the people here?
We're actually thinking of putting, around 10,000 families to the northern barangays and creating a North City Township, basically another city outside the common city.
Another city?
Yeah. Creating another city outside the common city for all those people who will be relocated and displaced. But there's also a political side on that. Because the national government is actually wanting the city mayor to resign. But they cannot push the city mayor to resign. So they're thinking of creating their own city. So they'll have their own city mayor and they'll have their own politics.
It means the national is already taking charge.
Yeah, that's why the national government and the national government aid is not yet pushing through, even at this point of time, because the local city mayor it's not yet resigning. So they want him to resign first before they'll do anything with the area and the people.
And they're not telling this to anybody.
Exactly. These people, they don't know anything. Even us, we had a hard time knowing this.
Right.
We are already in the government, imagine that.
Yeah. So you found out through working via government?
No, we found out by investigating, really studying, because we coming from Congress,
Right.
the
Right.
town party
Yeah.
as the official representation of the youth in Congress. I as the representative of this representation in Congress here in the locals, we gather all our forces and study the whole thing because in the national news, in the national media, the whole national government is really projecting a large show, a big show basically about what's happening here and there. Actually in the area and in the grounds, we're not saying anything. So we have investigated really
Right,
so
of
what
course.
really is happening about that.
That's Nick's. That's our other team.
That's our team.
That's our team.
We found that because this rehabilitation czar of the government, Senator Lacson,
Senator Locson.
we already have created actually a rehabilitation council for the city with some people sitting on that council coming from the city but not actually representing the basic sectors of the city.
Also the urban poor,
The youth,
the youth, women, everything that Lion works for.
So we learned that when we have talked to the people, talked to some, to the people basically, we talk to the people, we check everything that's going on, and we mismatching.
Right. And they're just representing the upper class
Exactly.
with this
You
rehabilitation
know who
program.
really sits there? Businessmen.
Business.
Real estate investors.
Real estate. Okay.
Owners of large villages, subdivisions in the city, we are the ones sitting in that council. We are after the funding that the council will be giving after all.
And so they're thinking this is going to be a tourist area, potentially. And they're going to give these lands to local or foreign investors.
Still depends as to
Still
who
depends.
who will be investing.
Okay. But I'm sure there will be foreign investors.
Exactly.